What's going on, everybody? How we doing today on this lovely Tuesday? For those of you that are in the New England area, you might be snowing near you. Might be. Let me know. Let me know if it's snowing near you guys. I just looked outside right now, and we do have a layer of snow on the ground, which is incredible. Not looking forward to cleaning that, but hey, here we are. I'm really excited for today's episode, guys. We're going to be talking about the Daytona 24 Hour. So usually when we come to January, there's a lot of exciting things going on, from the Detroit Auto Show to some other stuff, and we usually have a lot of car news to get to, and because of that, we end up skipping or missing talking about the Daytona 24 Hour. We'll maybe catch up on the highlights, let you guys know who won, stuff like that. But today and this week, because there isn't really much car news going on, we're going to talk about the Daytona 24 Hour, and I'm going to give you guys a full rundown on the race, what the classes are, who's competing, and what you can expect come Saturday. So the race starts at around 4 p.m. Eastern, and obviously it's a 24-hour race, so it runs from Saturday all the way into Sunday. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Everyone's going to get caught up and up to speed on everything Daytona 24 Hours. So I hope you guys are excited. If you're watching this, let me know where you're watching the race. If you're watching the race, maybe I'll share some Reddit links in the comments later on of places you can watch the race for free. If you guys don't have any of the streaming services or anything like that. Hosting a super small get-together with some buddies. We're going to be watching the race. I think there's like 3-4 of us, so nothing crazy. But it should be fun. I'm really, really excited. January's the start of the year, right? So it's car news. There's a bunch of racing going on. The Daytona 24 Hour really marks that sort of introductory point to the season in a lot of respects, and especially this year where there's not an insane amount of car news going on. So excited to walk you guys through that. As always, we're going to fire up the Audacity machine, which is what I use to record my podcast, and we're going to get going. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Money Shift Podcast. I am Thanasi, and today, we're going to be talking Daytona 24 Hour, because that event is this weekend, and it is one that you should be ready for. Do you know who's running? Do you know what the classes are? Do you know what to expect come Saturday? Well, if you don't, you're in the right place, and you're listening to the right man. I'm here to help get you guys through it. And for those of you that don't know or are listening on the podcast, we do stream every week on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can find us at MoneyShift_ on Twitch, on YouTube at MoneyShift, and on Facebook at MoneyShift Podcast. So if you guys enjoy the podcast and want to interact with me during the live stream, which I greatly encourage for those of you that are watching right now, hop in that chat. I want your thoughts constantly, who you think's going to win, who you would want to be in the series that isn't. But yeah, just come through, come join along, and let's have some fun. So without further ado, let's get this going. Actually, no. Bullshit. There is further ado. What the fuck am I talking about? Some car news personally for me before we begin. And this might come to a surprise to a lot of people, but for those that have known me for a long time, this is really much of a surprise. But I've received some offers on the Phaeton recently, and and it's kind of, been interesting, because I'm of the mind, right, because I don't have fuck you Jay Leno money, okay, that there's so many cars that I want to experience in life. So if I can buy a car, right, whatever that price may be, $5K, $10K, $50K, whatever, enjoy it, drive it, put some miles on it, and then someone comes through and goes, hey, I'm willing to give you more than what you paid for it. Now you got my attention. And I've gotten a couple of those people for the Phaeton, and I've got to be honest, guys, I love that car with every bone in my body. It is one of the best daily drivers I've ever used in my life. It's incredibly comfortable. It's smooth. It has so many features, which, by the way, I know I've been saying this for 3 weeks, but the video actually does drop this week, Friday, on that car. So stay tuned to the Money Shift YouTube channel if you guys check that out. But who knows where we'll be next week, guys? I don't know. It's looking tough. It's looking grim for the Phaeton, but bright for the Money Shift channel, because then that just means that you guys get to hear about more cars that I can talk about, and you guys can know if it's something for you. Because I'll be honest, like, I was very afraid going into Phaeton ownership that all the rumors about it would be true. And granted, I've put 5,000 miles on the car, so my sample size isn't, years and hundreds of thousands of miles or anything like that. But what I will say is, if you're able to acquire one, okay, that has had its maintenance done, which my car had the serpentine belt, the water pump, and the second battery, because this car has 2 fucking batteries, replaced, to the tune, I think it cost the previous owner something like $7K, $7K, because they got it done at the dealer, Phaeton certified mechanic, all that jazz. But if you're able to get that done, then this car, like, doesn't really need much other than just making sure that you change the oil when you should, change transmission oil when you should, and, like, just keep up with the car. Like, use it, floor it, So we'll see what happens next week, but I just wanted to give you guys the update on that, as I always do with everything car-related. As far as the Civic goes, it's still sort of sitting in its purgatory, meaning it's sitting in the garage. I got all the suspension parts next to it, putting together, like, a small little get cars ready for the track day next month with some folks that are going to swing by, and we're going to probably install all of that stuff then. So the rear disc brakes, the coilovers, wheels, tires, things like that. So that'll be really awesome. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to telling you guys about it, because right now it's just a burnout machine that rubs off center. So we'll see how it changes with the new suspension, the new control arms, the rear brakes, roll center correction, stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm just ready for track season. Unlike the West Coast, here in the Northeast, okay, we only have an allotted window that we can use our tracks. We don't have 12 months like you guys. And I know for those of you folks in California, you're like, hey, buddy, when it comes time for summer, we can't really go to the track either because it's fucking 100 degrees. But hey, you have the option, okay? We don't. I can't go right now. It's fucking snowing outside. You know what I mean? So anyway, my personal car's out of the way. Let's get into the Daytona 24-hour preview that I alluded to. So the first thing that I'm going to cover is, what are the classes in the Daytona 24-hour? What can you expect to see? What makes them, a Daytona prototype versus an LMP2 versus a GTLM? What the fuck are all these classes? Well, let me just break it down, and we're going to go first by enclosed prototypes, and then we're going to talk about the touring car. So we're going to talk about this in sort of 2 waves, if you guys are cool with that. So let's start out with the DPI and the LMP2 stuff. So for those of you that are watching on stream, the car that does not have the white background are the DPI cars. I'll try to make these photos a little bigger for those of you watching so that it's easier to see on things like a cell phone or something like that. Well, for whatever reason, this first photo is going to be very hard to get to. But anyway, let's see. Let's see if I can pull it up. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. Fantastic. Okay. So what makes a Daytona prototype, and why am I actually really, really excited about watching this year's Daytona prototype class? So all the Daytona prototype cars have the same chassis. That means their bones are effectively the same. Their wheelbase and all that comes with the chassis is standard across the field. So what's different? What makes a Daytona prototype a unique car? What makes the Acura different from the Mazda, different from the Cadillac, things like that? So what makes the difference is both the engine and the aerodynamics. So in the engine, the brands can use their own power unit. So Cadillac uses its own engine versus Acura uses its own engine. They could use each other's, but that doesn't really happen because these are brands that are running in the Daytona prototype series, not privateers really, right? Like you're buying the Cadillac Daytona prototype. You're not buying a chassis and then putting an engine and then putting aero. You're buying the Daytona prototype. So the engine and aero is really where things get specific. And if you look at these cars, it's really easy to to identify what brand they're associated with without even seeing a badge or any writing. The Cadillac has the hallmark huge LED that goes from the fender all the way to the bottom of the bumper. The Acura has the jewel LEDs, and the Mazda has similar design language to all the Mazda vehicles, the very small headlights, the round sort of ovally type thing. But you can really, really tell these cars apart. I love that about this series because it provides a way for manufacturers to get into prototype racing on the cheap. And that's what's going to be really great about the LMDH series, because the LMDH series is effectively Daytona prototypes, but it allows them to race at Le Mans. So what this does is, right, is it's Daytona prototypes where the chassis is the same throughout, which minimizes cost, but you still have unique bodies and unique power plants, so it gives the feel of sort of like Group C type racing, which is fucking rad, right? LMP2 is LMP2. It means you get to sort of see how these cars do up against something like a Daytona prototype or against a Le Mans prototype, because, you know, the Ligier, the Orica, the Multimatic, the Dallara cars in LMP2, they're pretty standard prototypes. There's same spec engines. They have slightly different aero. The WC describes LMP2 as a racing car with no production minimum required. It's a closed cockpit car destined only to teams independent of manufacturers and or engine suppliers. So Nissan can't have an LMP2 car, Toyota can't have an LMP2 car, but a privateer team can use a Toyota engine, can use a Toyota body, for example, right? Nissan was a really big purveyor of engines for LMP2 for a very long time. The selling price of a complete new car without engine must not exceed 480,000 euros. Love that. For whatever reason, they're costing, well, not for whatever reason, it's so, you know, multiple privateer teams can compete, but they're trying to keep the costs as low as possible. So they're speccing how much these teams can charge for their Le Mans prototypes. Okay, so moving away from prototypes, let's talk about the two classes of cars that will also be competing at the Daytona 24 Hour, and that is none other than the it's GTE, I'm an idiot, sorry, GTE and GTD, okay? So what is the difference between these two cars? Why are they different, and what can you expect or who can you expect to race in these classes? So again, for those of you watching the stream, the automobile without a background is the car that is in the GTLM class. So these are the cars that have the same regulations as the vehicles that race at the 24 Hour of Le Mans. So oftentimes, the Daytona 24 Hour is really the test ground where a bunch of these brands can bring their new cars and put them through the rigors of a 24-hour race, right? Not often, not many 24-hour races exist over the course of the year. So if you plan to run at the 24 Hour of Le Mans, this really is a must go. And that's why oftentimes in the GTLM class, it is beautiful. Every brand competes. It's a lot of fun. You get to see the new cars for the first time. This race last time is where the C8 made its debut. And there's a bunch of different cars in that class. We'll get to that later. They do have some rules. They say that the engine must be a production sort of based engine. There's been a couple exceptions to the rule. The Z4 GTLM car had an exception to that rule. Also, the Viper had an exception to that rule. And the reason is because they limit the naturally aspirated cars to 5.5 liters, which is why the Corvette that races in GTLM has a 5.5 liter V8. But if the engine is turbocharged, like what the BMW uses in the M8, that engine is only 4 liters. So they had to make an exception for the Viper because it has an 8-liter engine, right? So shout out to the homies at Dodge that laid the Mac down with the new Viper when they raced. All the GTLM cars have a 24-gallon fuel tank. They all weigh 2,700 pounds. Which is awesome. So it's incredible racing. Oftentimes these cars, even after 24 hours, are within minutes of each other, and the racing is incredibly close, much like it is in the DPI category. So on the bottom there, the car with a background is the Lexus Rcf that races in GTD. Now, the GT Daytona class, okay, is a class that is based on the FIA Gt3 regulations. So if you guys are watching any of the GT3 spec series in the WEC, not the WEC, just in Europe, right? The GT3 championships that compete there, the same cars compete in Le Mans GTD. So it's really, in GTD at the 24 hours. So it's really interesting to see how the GTD cars and the GTLM cars compete, because sometimes on the straights, on the banking, they're actually semi-even, but where the differences are made is in corners, as the GTLM cars have more aero, often have more tire and things like that. So while there is a performance disparity between the two classes, there's a ton of competition, a lot of brands competing in these classes. So we'll get to that in just a second, but I'm super, super excited for this year's Daytona 24 Hour. There are the most entrants not ever, but in recent history in this Daytona 24 Hour. I think there's something like 50 cars that are competing this year, which is really awesome to see for a couple reasons. One, the Daytona 24 Hour, like we talked about before, is usually an indicator about how the rest of the racing series shake out, how many cars are going to compete at things like Le Mans, things like the WEC, and stuff like that. Number two, the racing is incredibly close. All the DPI cars, because of the rules and regulations, are really, really close. They have different advantages because of the aero differences, but they're really, really close. GTLM cars, really close. GTD cars, really close. So it's going to be awesome racing over the full 24 hours. So let's get into some of the competitors that you'll be seeing in each of the classes, because it's not good enough just to know the different categories at the Daytona 24 Hour. You need to know who's going to be competing so you're not shocked. And for those of you that are watching on the Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch live stream, you're in for a treat, because I'm actually going to be putting these cars on the screen so you'll be able to identify them when you see them on your TV screen later on this week on Saturday, right? So we're going to start in the DPI category, and we're going to start with the brand that qualified first. I'll get through the full qualifications at the end of this, but that is none other than the fine folks at Cadillac. So Cadillac has a series of DPIs that are going to be competing for the win in the Daytona 24 Hour. Now, it is important to note that Cadillac fucking dominates this race. I think the folks at Wayne Taylor Racing, when they were running a Cadillac DPI, won something like 4 out of the last 5 or 3 out of the last 4, something like that. They only dropped 1 over the last over 3 years, and they're coming to play. They qualified first. They won the Motul pole race. They're incredibly fast. Cadillacs are consistent. So not only do they rip like hell on the straightaway, but they're also incredibly reliable. It's a chassis, it's a body, it's an engine package that has been used for a while now, and it's really, really been honed in, right? The brands and the brand has an understanding. They know what the fuck they're doing. So big shout out to Cadillac here. I think it is one of the prettiest DPI cars, personally. The Cadillac lighting looks incredible. The body is really well sculpted. And there's a host of phenomenal drivers that are competing with the Cadillac for this year. So I'll pull that up for you guys, because I had that. So if you hear the clicking, I do apologize, but I had that for one second, and for whatever reason, it's gone all of a sudden, which is great. Okay, here we go. So there are racers. Chase Elliott, the NASCAR champion for last year, is going to be competing in the car that qualified first. And then also Sebastian Bourdais, who is an incredible driver, obviously really, really great in sports cars. Also, there's Jimmy Johnson, Kamui Kobayashi, Simon Pagenaud, and Mike Rockefeller in one car. And those are all guys that are phenomenal. So every single DPI car, for the most part, has really, really great drivers, and Cadillac teams are no exception to that. But moving on from Cadillac, the second place car on the qualifying grid is the lone Mazda. So Mazda last year actually set the lap record for Daytona 24, like for that track ever. They set the fastest time. And they had two cars. They had a white machine, which those of you that are watching the live stream see the white machine. And then they also had an all red guy. Shout out to Brian with the 50 stars. Thank you, my dude. Welcome to the stream. I am jazzed to have you here. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for the stars. Thank you for that, dude. Appreciate it. Whoa, Brian with another 50 and another 50 and another 50. That's my guy right there. Thank you, Brian. Thank you again for tuning in. And thank you, everybody who has supported the channel. Appreciate that. But continuing here, so Mazda is only entering one Daytona prototype this year, but the drivers in it are fucking insane. Okay. You have Olivier Jarvis, you have Harry Tinknell, and you have Jonathan Bomarito. So they're going with a 3-driver run for the 24-hour. Oftentimes you see 3, sometimes you see 4, but Mazda is coming to play, and they came for second with the lone car, so the whole team's effort are behind this one vehicle to really push it over the finish line. But you guys see what I mean when I was saying that the Mazda does, in fact, very much so look like a Mazda, right? As we go through these lists of these cars, and for those of you that are watching the live stream, really see these cars, you almost don't even need me to say what brand it is because it's so easy. I mean, I know it says Mazda Motorsport along the side of this fucking thing, but you can tell just from the looks that it's a Mazda. And that's what I really, really like about the DPI series and what I'm really going to like about LMDH. So moving on to the last brand competing in DPI, and that is the fine folks at Acura. So Acura actually received 2 new teams for this year. So for one, they have the Konica Minolta car of Wayne Taylor Racing. And Wayne Taylor Racing formerly was running with Cadillac, and they had immense levels of success at the Daytona 24 Hour, winning countless times. This is actually their first year running an Acura, and actually they just received this car. Like, I'm talking their first time running with this car was truly this weekend. So the boys at Wayne Taylor Racing in this Konica Minolta car have a lot to learn, and they got to learn it quickly. And I mean, they did make a pretty solid 5th place qualifying run, or time at the Motul pole race. Behind the wheel, they have Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, Alexander Rossi, and Elio Castroneves. So they have the drivers to really take this home, but do they have the car knowledge to take it home, right? They've been running with Cadillac for the last, 4+ years, and now they're switching to a new car that they just got, that they haven't even had the chance to have a private testing session on their own. So we'll see how that shakes out for them during the race. They're an incredible team, so I have no doubts in that front, but hopefully they can string it together. And the second team there is the Meyer Shank Racing boys, and they also have a fantastic team with Juan Pablo Montoya, former F1 fame, AJ Allmendinger from the NASCAR side, Dane Cameron, and Olivier Plas. So they have a stacked team as well. The Acura car does very much so look like an Acura, and it prominently features the Jewel headlights. Brian coming back with 500 stars. My guy, thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate all the stars, dude. Seriously. Thank you. That's too much. You're too kind. I appreciate it. So with the DPIs out of the way, I'm quickly going to gloss through the LMP2 cars because I'm going to be honest here, guys. Although there are some prominent differences in terms of how the LMP2 cars look, they look really similar, so it's going to be tough. There's some that look... Anyway, I'm just going to get to it. So the first cars are the Oreca cars. So Oreca is now the most prominent in the class. Previously, that was Ligier. Now it's the Oreca cars. Most of the cars are this Oreca OS07. So be prepared to see it. This is going to be, I think, something like 6 out of the 10 or something like that entries are Orecas. So get ready. The other 2 cars that I'm going to show you guys, only one of them exists. So the rest of them are this Oreca OS07. The pole position car has Ben Keating, Michael Jensen, Scott Huffaker, and Nicholas Lapierre, which are stunning drivers. So really, I like the LMP2 class. I like that it gets to go toe-to-toe with the DPI cars because it is nice to see just like the old school kind of, not old school, but prototypes go against these DPI guys. The second class, or the second car that will be competing is one machine from the fine folks over at Dallara. Piloting this car is the likes of Roberto Lacorte, Antonio Fuoco, Andrea Bellicchi, and Giorgio Serna Giotto, which is totally on brand because Dallara is Italian, so the majority of their drivers are also Italian. You can see the difference between this and the Oreca car. It does have a much profound front end. It's very blocky on the front side, so it'll be nice to really, you'll be able to pick that car out from the field of LMP2s really easily. And then the last car was the former king of the segment, but there is one Ligier that is competing and qualified 8th out of 10th. Cody Ware, Sully Ulach, Austin Dillon of NASCAR fame, and Matthew Geminet. So those are the three LMP2s that you will be seeing. Again, the Ligier and the Oreca look largely similar, with the Dallara being the most profound in terms of differences. But again, it's always nice to have cars in that class. So before we move to the GT cars, I do want to quickly touch on the fact that LMP3 is going to be a class that competes. These are cars that are even cheaper than LMP2, and this is really the WEC and Le Mans preparing for a world where LMP2 doesn't exist, and where it's just going to be DPI and LMDH cars, or excuse me, LMDH, which is DPI, and LMH are going to be the top two prototype classes, and then the cheaper one is going to be these LMP3s. So this is their first race out and about. Nothing really to note. Both of them look remarkably similar. It's just a cheap way for some privateer companies to get in. One of them is made by Duquesne. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And then the other one is made by Ligier, with the Duquesne cars coming 1-2, and then the rest of them being Ligiers. And there are 7 LMP3 cars. So without stopping anymore, let's move on to the best class, right? I love DPI. We love DPI. Everyone loves DPI. But truly the best class in the field is GTLM. For the reason that it can be the last hour of a 24-hour race, and these guys will be 10 minutes apart. And that's really, really fucking awesome to have cars that are that close together after they've been racing for 24 hours. So who's going to be competing in this segment? So you have the Corvette C8R with Nick Tandy, Alexander Sims, Tommy Milner, and in one car, and then Jordan Taylor, Nick Katzberg, and Antonio Garcia in another car. Important to note, some of those names were actually from the Ford GT program, which is no longer around. So we lost the Ford GT, for this year of any sort of WEC competition. We're not going to see them at Le Mans. We're not going to see them at Daytona, Sebring, Bahrain, wherever. They're done from the 24-hour race. So that's why some of those names that I mentioned, driving some of the DPI cars and driving now the Corvettes like Nick Tandy, are from other teams like Ford primarily, right? Or Porsche, because there is only one Porsche competing this year, and it's not a factory-backed team. It's a WeatherTech racing team. So there's the 2 Corvette C8Rs. There is one Porsche 911 RSR with a couple good names there like Kevin Estre and Richard Leitz. And then there is one Ferrari 488 GTE with James Collado, Alessandro Pierre Guidi, Jules Gounon, and David Rion, Jesus Christ, that are behind the wheel of that car. And then finally, it's the Chonkster. There are 2 BMW M8 GTEs with star-studded lineups. Timo Glock, Philip Bang, Bruno Spengler, Augusto Farfus. Like, BMW is unleashing everything to try to get this. The M8 has been around for a long time now. So what can you expect from this GTLM class? Well, I'll lay the groundwork? Jesus Christ. I'll lay the rules down right now. So Corvette is 1-2. Okay. They qualified 1-2. They're probably going to remain like that. The C8 really was in its element towards the end of the season. And it's it was cruising. Like they had a shaky Daytona 24 Hour, but it was the brand's first time using that car. But over the course of this season, they really started to figure things out and really just started to click and cruise and run really, really well. The BMW M8s are incredibly fast around the banking. And because it's the oldest car in the field, they know this thing top to bottom. So usually you'll see the BMW M8 at the end, not because it's the fastest, but because it's had the least problems. The M8 has been in contention for the Daytona 24 Hour win pretty much since its inception because of that. It's just been remarkably consistent. Regardless of how big this fucking thing is, it just runs. And the Ferrari and the Porsche, well, because they're only one car teams, it's going to be interesting to see how they do because they don't really have someone to run an alternate strategy or to slipstream with or things like that to conserve fuel, stuff like that. So how will the Ferrari and Porsche teams do? Porsche won last year at the Daytona 24 Hour. The 911 RSR is a really great car around this track. The Ferrari is also decent. So we'll see. It truly is anyone's race, but we do have 4 different types of cars competing with 6 total cars in the class. So it should be a good time. Andrew Highland with the like on the stream. Thank you for that, dude. Appreciate that. If you guys haven't hit that like button or follow, please consider it. I do appreciate it. But the last class that we're going to talk about is the GT3 class because there are some incredibly interesting competitors in this field. So Aston Martin also stepped back from racing GT cars to really focus its efforts on its Formula One team. But there is a privateer team running the Aston Martin GT3 Vantage in this year's 24 Hour. In addition, there is an M6 GT3 run from the folks at Turner. So that truly is the oldest car in the segment by a long shot. I mean, hell, they don't even sell the brand new BMW or the BMW M6 anymore. And the Turner boys are still chugging along with that car and still doing incredibly well with it. So there's an M6 GT3. There is one 911 GT3, which is that car you see right there. Thank you, Joe and John, for the likes on the stream. Appreciate that, fellas. It is from Pfaff Racing. It's plaid. It's cool as hell. You got a Mercedes AMG Gt3. There's a couple of those in the field this year. There's Huracan GT3s, 488 GT3s, Lexus Rcf Gt3s. In other words, it's probably the biggest class by far because it's the cheapest, right? There's 19 GTD cars competing versus 6 GTLM cars versus 7 LMP3, 10 LMP2, and 7 DPIs. So there's over double competing in the GTD class, and because of that, it's going to be fun racing. There's a lot of different brands, a lot of different drivers, and over 24 hours, this is probably going to be the class to watch over the course of that. I have my favorites. I'm definitely rooting for these guys right here in the Lexus Rcf Gt3. I love that thing's still churning along and coming into its element. They had a really good season last year. They just lost to the NSX for the overall championship win, but they did pick up a lot of wins over the course of the year. So it's going to be a really, really fun series to watch. So let's quickly run over the qualifying and then just a brief overview of the Daytona 24 Hour. And for those of you that are watching, if you guys have any questions or if you guys have any topics, put that in the chat right now because we're about to go into like this nebulous world where I share my browser and we go over some car news that recently did just come in. I'm talking like within the last hour that we'll go over live with you guys before I make the post on the Money Shift Facebook and Instagram page. So if you guys have any topics or any things you want to talk about, drop that in the chat right now and we'll get to that right after I go over the qualifying spots. So in the DPI class, as I said earlier, you have Cadillac, Mazda, Cadillac, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be really interesting. Brian says, how many driver changes do they do? That's really an interesting question because as I noted earlier, some of the teams have 3 cars, Jesus Christ. Some of the teams have 3 drivers. Other teams have 4 drivers. So the amount of driver changes between those two is really volatile. But during the Daytona 24 hour, they do actually change quite often. Their stints are a couple hours at a time. But let me get an exact number for you, because I do know this offhand, but I just want to like, It doesn't tell me, which is frustrating, but I'll find that number for you, because that definitely is something that we should know. But going really quickly back over the qualifying stats. So we talked about DPI. Let me get into LMP2. The Orica cars are 1, 2, 3. For the LMP3, like I said before, the Duquesne cars are 1, 2 with a Ligier third. In GTLM, Corvette sweeps the top row, 1 and 2, with Porsche coming in at third, Ferrari fourth. And then in GTD, it's the only class where the top 5 cars are different. So you have a BMW M6 first, shout out to the Turner boys that are still making that old fucking car relevant. You have a Porsche 911 GT3 second, you have a Huracan third, a Lexus fourth, a Mercedes fifth, and then you have another Huracan sixth. So that's the first repeat. So the top 5 cars are different in GTD, and the top 6 out of 7 cars are different, with an Aston Martin qualifying 7th. So that's really, really awesome. Love the diversity. Love how close these cars are. And it's not just dominant by one brand, right? Which is really, really awesome and incredibly interesting. All right. Let me quickly share for you guys now an overview of what to expect come Saturday. And then I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk about some recent news that just came in. And no, I'm not talking about the stock market for those of you that are following GME and AMC and stuff like that. I'm talking about some news from BMW, which is a brand I fucking hate, and I don't understand why this car exists. But anyway, here we are, and we're going to talk about it because it's important to talk about. So, overview. 24-hour race starts at 4 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. There's a bunch of different classes. DPI, which is a unique... Sorry, I just got thrown off there. Standard chassis across the field, unique aero, unique engines. LMP2, 4 brands that make cars for them. No manufacturer can compete. So Toyota can't have an LMP2 car. It's all privateers. Then there's LMP3, same thing as LMP2. And then there's GTD, which are GT3 cars. And then GTLM, which are LM cars. So super excited. And let me know if you guys are watching the race, where you're watching it, how you're watching it. I'm definitely watching it with a bunch of boys. So I'm excited. Justin says, wait, what, Justin? What's going on, dude? How are you? Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Okay, so as I share my screen here, we're going to talk about some BMW news. And again, I'm going to end the podcast here. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into the podcast. We had a bit of a shorter one today, but I hope you guys got a lot out of it. And I'm excited for the ability to talk results next week. So see you there. Goodbye. All right, with the podcast out of the way. Okay, Justin says, Toyota has an LMP car, don't they? Am I insane? So yes, the car that Toyota developed was for the LMH class, which is Le Mans hypercar. For this year at the Daytona 24 Hour, there will be no Le Mans hypercars competing. It's just DPI, which is the same as LMDH, and LMP2 and LMP3. There's no Le Mans hypercar. So you won't see the Toyota LMP or the Peugeot or the Glickenhaus or the Bicals hypercars competing this year. Those cars are all going to be competing next year at the 24 Hour, both in Daytona and in France. So it's a bit of a bummer that we're like seeing what the fuck these cars look like, but we won't actually be able to see them compete this year. So, but it is what it is. Things happen. Joe says, thanks for the cool overview of the 24 Hour. No worries, dude. Thanks for tuning in. And thank you for the 100 stars, dude. I appreciate that. Seriously, it means a lot for sure. So, okay, I'm going to quickly share my screen here. So I'm going to move the chat a little bit to the right. And again, if you guys have questions, like keep them coming. Like this is truly my favorite part of the stream, because this is the time where like we're just hanging out, shooting the shit, talking cars, and going over some car news on the interwebs. So Justin says, okay, that makes sense, but that statement broke my brain a bit because I saw the car and it looked insane. Yeah, it looked fucking mental, and Toyota released that car wicked early. Like, Peugeot's design is, they literally just showed a chassis and how their hybrid system would work, and Bikols just showed a drawing, and Glickenhaus just showed a 3D image. No one has actually produced a car, but Toyota did, and they made it like wicked early. But it speaks to Toyota's attention to detail, right? Because Toyota's trying to get all the kinks out of the way. They want to win this fucking Le Mans 24 Hour, and they want to dominate. So they're getting a lot of testing in right now. When they release the car, you could actually already hear it running around track, where some of these other companies haven't even made a full car. So Toyota's way ahead of the curve in that regard, which is fucking awesome. All right, let me get my screen up here for you guys. Let's do this. Let's do this. Boom. All right. We talked about this car 2 weeks ago, but it literally just dropped. Like, during this stream, it just dropped. So you guys are going to get a first insight into what this car is, what it does. I'm probably going to make a post on this in like 20 minutes. So you guys will be able to see it on the Money Shift YouTube page. On the Money Shift Instagram and on the Money Shift Facebook page. But here it is. So shout out to Justin. Thanks for the share, my dude. So here it is. So this is the BMW M5 CS. Okay. And again, we talked about this on the last stream, but what CS means for BMW now is less weight, more power. And you guys got to remember, this thing already had a shit ton of fucking power already. Okay, for those of you guys that know the M5, you know that thing was the bee's knees in terms of power, in terms of speed, in terms of all that. But BMW said, nah, bitch, not enough. We need more. And they gave us more. So what the fuck are the details with this M5 CS? Well, it has 627 horsepower, which is the most powerful production BMW ever is a 5 Series sedan, which is fucking ludicrous. Anyway, 627 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque. This thing does 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. This is a 5 Series that does 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. This is a 5 Series. That's 0.2 seconds faster than the M5 competition. Does 190 miles an hour. Who cares? Has drift mode. Who cares? They were able to pull out 230 pounds, which is pretty impressive. Shout out to BMW for being able to take a lot of weight out of this thing. The styling is unique because it has gold bronze emblems, 20-inch wheels, CS logos. I'll full screen these photos for you guys so you guys can see this thing. Let me know what you think. If you guys are still watching, what do you guys think about the M5 CS? Do you think this car should even fucking exist? Does it make sense? I don't know. Brian, I agree with you. I think this color looks incredible. I do really, really, really like this green. Like, really like this green. But I just don't understand the point of a 5 Series being this fast. Like, if you were to tell me this was the M8 or the 7 Series or a new car that was a Halo, I'm with it, right? I get that. I understand it. But to increase performance in a car that's already quick, the M5 Comp does 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. Okay. 3.1 seconds. They already were making an M5 that does 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. What the fuck is the need for this car that does it in 2.9? Like, what is it? Brian says, sick car, but most likely sounds like a vacuum cleaner like all the rest of these cars. You're probably right. What this car has going for it, though, over things like the M3, M4, is at least it's a V8. But yeah, turbo cars are definitely muffled. I do love the lights, though, the DRLs. Shout out to any company that makes DRLs that aren't white, which is just BMW and Kia right now. But, I mean, I think it does look the part. I do like the BMW restyle of the 5 Series. It keeps it unique, keeps it interesting. Okay. And the biggest thing is price, friends. The M5 is only going to be available for one model year. Look at this. It's $142,000. I told you guys this on the last podcast. So, Money Shift people, if you guys are listening, you know when I said that BMW was going to be a fool a fool for selling an M5 that could be close to $200,000 optioned up. It starts at 142, guys. This is a German company, okay? You're probably going to be able to option this thing to fuck. Yeah, you're going to need a lot more stars for that. You're totally right, Brian. Yeah, guys, I'm going to need some more donation stat if I'm going to be affording a $150,000 5 Series. Okay, at the end of the day, you own a 5 Series, right? This is the same people that shit on Subaru for making a $60,000 S209, right? They were like, oh, you have a $60,000 Impreza. Well, at least it's not a $150,000 5 Series. Other news that came out on the car side of things, again, it really isn't that much, guys. Kia stopped the Cadenza and the K900 in the States. Which is a bummer because the K900 is actually a really, really nice car, and I'm excited for Papa Depreciation to get a nice firm grip on that car, so that in a couple years when it's 10 grand, I can sneak in there like a home invasion. Everyone's freaking out over Toyota re-upping their trademark on the Celica name. I think they're stupid because a lot of these companies re-up trademarks like that just to keep the name, right? They just want to make sure that no one else makes a Celica, right? So when Toyota says, hey, we're filing for a trademark for the Celica name, it's not because they're going to fucking make a Celica in 2 years. Now, they might, but they're probably not. And they're probably just doing this so that they can retain their name, right? Joe says, stoked Lotus is going to make cars that I can't fit in. Yeah, we could start with that. Lotus announced that they're going to be making 3 new cars because this is the last year for the Exige, Elise, and Evora, which is their gas cars. So they're not all going to be electric, which is good. They're probably going to be hybrids, plug-ins, things of the like, but hopefully they can manage to stay true to the Lotus-ness, right, which is light, tossable, fun. Not necessarily the fastest. I know this Avija, or however the fuck you pronounce this name, is like 2,000 horsepower, all electric, 0 to 60 in like fucking 1 second bullshit. But hopefully the other cars will be more cars that are focused on the drive itself, you know, instead of just pure numbers. Brian says the Celica was sick when it looked like a baby Supra like the 93. Yeah, I love the Celica. I actually love all generations. Love the all-track. They could easily bring it back and plug in the Yaris GR drivetrain with the all-wheel drive and the turbo 3-cylinder, and now you have like a performance coupe that's under 40K that competes, you know, really well. But will they do that? Who knows? They haven't been testing anything, so if they did it, it truly would be out of left field. The other thing that I wanted to really touch on, Sony, I think, is playing us, man, like playing us really bad. They developed these 2 cars, a crossover and a sedan. They've been seen testing this sedan lately, the Vision S. Sony says that all they're doing is testing their autonomous tech. This car is a level 2 plus autonomous. They say they want it to be a level 4 by the end of the year. Level 4 means it can literally drive itself. They also told us that they had no intention of producing this car to the public, but I call bullshit because there's no need for you to develop your own car in order to test autonomous technology, right? Companies like Zoox, companies like Cruise, companies like Line, I think is the... Zoox used a Highlander to test its autonomous tech before it's developing its own car, right? They didn't need to develop their own car in order to test the tech. Sony's just flat out flexing. And I truly think that in a couple years, we're going to see this car come out. So in spite of every major publication trying to tell you guys that wasn't the case, don't buy into it because I don't think it's true. Brian says, Big Daddy drinking from the gallon power move. Yeah, man, I've been trying to push this like gallon a day thing since the start of January. It's been going incredibly well. I've been crushing gallons left and right. My pee could not be any more clear. That's where we're at today. So that's going to be crushed easy. It means I'm pissing at like 1 a.m., but it is what it is. How do you guys feel, for those of you that are tuned in, how do you guys like posts like this? So I made a post about what I feel is the rarest Mazda Miata of all time. This is the Mazda MX-5 Le Mans edition. This was a 91. Brian says you'd be a terrible Le Mans driver. Nah, man, those guys, they have a fucking catheter that's like put onto their penis in case they have to piss while they're driving, or in their vagina if they're a woman. And they can pee while driving. So send it, man. I'll fucking pee while driving. Joe says the Miata post was sick. All right. So if you guys like this, I'm definitely going to keep doing these. There's so many like random cars like this that not a lot of people know about, that hopefully like we can make some posts like we did that. I did this one about Jean Rondeau, who like won the Le Mans 24 Hour in a car he designed. They did pretty well in terms of views, shares, things like that. So keep a lookout. I might do one a day. So have like one post like this where it's about the Sony car, like a new car news, and then one post like this where it's, you know, something that's existing. I think I actually did that today with, so we talked about the bread van that was just developed, and then I also posted about no, I didn't. Well, it's going to be the M5 CS. But yeah, no, it's good to hear that you guys like that, because I really do enjoy writing them and like looking into all the information needed to accurately convey that information to you guys. So it's good to hear that some folks liked it, which is nice. Yeah, but that really was it. We had the bread van, we had the Lotus news, we had Sony, and then we had the 4xe Wrangler. Like that was our car news this week. Was Jeep charging $60,000 for a plug-in fucking Wrangler? That, albeit, still does qualify for the $7,500 tax credit and things like that, but still incredibly expensive. Joe says weird, unique things like that are cool to know about. Agreed. Okay, so that, which I feel like is part of the Money Shift like ethos, is just like getting you guys up to date on every random ass car. Like I normally wouldn't have posted about the Hurton MX-5, but it's a cool car to know about. This is a brand new Miata with just new bodywork. I thought it was fucking cool. Oh yeah, and then Mini, all-time great at Dakar. Who knew? Who knew? But yeah, no, guys, thank you everybody for tuning in. This was a lot of fun. I love like talking racing and things like that. It's my passion, man. Cars, for real. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of the chat. Joe, Brian, Justin, everybody, John, all of you. Thanks for donating. Appreciate the stream. Appreciate the stars, stuff like that. Really goes a long way to help the stream, like mics and all that. So super appreciate it. Joe says Factory 5 has been developing their own supercar called the F9r. Not sure you knew about that. Factory 5 F9r. Oh, yes. I do know about this thing. Yeah. Have they made any what's it called? Have they made any of these past that one like clay model thing that they had a little bit ago? Because I've been hearing about this car for like 2 or 3 years now. In fact, I'm looking at an F9r Supercar update from March 2020. So have they, do you know if they've updated it? Effectively, for those of you that don't know, I'm going to reshare my screen here. Okay, here it is. It's a 2-seat build-it-yourself sports car. It's sub 2,400 pounds. Production estimate 2020 Q1 2021. So right around now. Joe says they did some wind tunnel testing and live testing, but changed the body. Okay, so it does look different than this? Let's see. Let's go to their page. Let's see if they have any updates. The Built Not Bought Company. True. Oh, here it is. Fall has arrived in New England, and despite many challenges this year in COVID-19, damn, that thing looks fucking cool, huh? Look at that thing. Problems with the aero, but the full body is carbon. Yeah. I'll zoom in on that so you guys can get a look. That is a good-looking machine. Love it. Yeah, absolute beast. You're totally right. There it. Oh, so there it is. So they have been driving it as well. No kidding, huh? Huh. Oh, virtual walk around. God, I love these. The renders have just like taken home, but gives a good insight, I guess, what it'll look like, because Factory 5 does make things that are pretty close to their rendering. So this looks fucking awesome. I'm very curious as to what this thing's going to cost. Joe says V12 LS. God damn it. Really? Is that what they're using? Is that what they're using? V12? Like, they're using... Can you put anything in it, or do you have to use that V12 LS? Because I would love to just put like an LS in this and call it a day. Not have to go through the price of a V12 LS. I wonder what they're going to be charging for this thing. Hopefully it's like still cheap, because that's part of the charm about Factory 5 is you can make these things like for relatively cheap. I mean, you can get crazy, right? But you can make them for pretty cheap. So hopefully that car is their most expensive, but okay, so their frames typically have modular mounts so you can run anything. Right. I've seen people run K-swaps in the 818, and that's really fucking awesome. Interesting. All right, so I'll keep a keen eye into that, and we'll see if we can find any news or anything like that. Oh, this just dropped. What the hell? 2022 Mini Cooper. Interesting. Okay, all right. So they changed the front end. What do we got? Let's see. Let's look at this thing a little bit. So wow, this whole bumper is new. That is fucking ugly. Yikes. I don't know what's going on here. There's a lot going on here. Lot. Too much. I don't like it. The rear, massive fake vent. Yikes. Time to put the baby. See you later, Brian. Thanks for tuning in, dude. Appreciate you having you here always every week. Thanks, Brian. The new JCWGP is slick with the fender canards. It looks really good, but man, have you been seeing reviews on that car? It's dog shit. Like, it's bad in comparison to like the Civic Type R, the GTI, and some other things. Like, it's not a good machine, which is kind of a bummer, especially for like how unique it is in terms of looks and availability and stuff like that. Like, yeah, man, it's a bummer that the car's kind of shit. Okay, so they just added a lot of fake vents to the Cooper. Got it. Got it. What's the price? $22K for a base model, not bad. $32K for a JCW hardtop, also not bad. I'll still take a Veloster N. What's a JCW make these days? 228 horsepower, 236 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, that's not it, Chief. That's not it. Yeah, not much else, guys. Again, it was kind of a lame week. So I was excited to bring you guys the Daytona 24 Hours sort of update, but I was a little bummed that I didn't have more than that. I'm thinking about extending this stream in terms of doing 2 a week. So we'll have our Tuesday stream like this where we go over new car news and stuff like that. And then I might have either a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday sort of like 1 hour blast where we go over something like the Jean Rondeau story. In addition to eventually, when my computer is up for it and the game streaming doesn't look like a Wallace and Gromit episode, a Wednesday night stream where we can play games like I play League of Legends, play Valorant, stuff like that, and just talk cars and shoot the shit, hang out. So appreciate everyone for tuning in today. Appreciate all the stars, the likes, the follows, the shares, all of that. We're growing week to week pretty big time. I think... What was the growth last week? Like, I was shocked at the amount of growth that we had. Let me pull it up, because like literally would not be possible without you guys. So major kudos to that. Yeah, we are almost at the 600 like mark, and we are over the 600 follow mark. So super excited. No, Joe, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in. I will see you next week for sure, Tuesday. Look for a video on the Phaeton to drop on the Money Shift YouTube channel on Friday. And maybe we'll go to a 2 or 3 stream layout next week, and we'll see how it goes, see how it vibes, see if the people are up for it. But thanks again, as always, for tuning in.